Well, it's finally time to talk about Elden Ring, Tarnished. Whattup viewers, what up, Calc Soups here, and welcome to the Friend Zone, a monthly video game show where I talk about the latest games with my friends. We are finally sitting down to discuss Elden Ring. It has taken us, I haven't even beat it yet, and I'm already 90 hours in. So yeah, it's taken us quite some time to kind of get through it. Some of us haven't even beat it yet, including myself. But excited to kind of talk about it, and there's a lot to talk about here. So we'll be talking a little bit about the pre-launch / hype of it, and From Software's pedigree. We'll talk a little bit about the review scores. I've got a few points I want to talk about there. As always, we'll be talking about what we were expecting and how would we describe it. Should be pretty easy there. We'll talk about character select and different builds that people played through, the open world nature of it all, and how immersive and the aesthetic it is for the game. We'll talk about the narrative and potentially George R. R. Martin's involvement. A little bit of the quest design there as well. We'll talk about bosses and multiplayer and some of the future content that, or potentially a sequel. And then, as always, we'll wrap up with our final thoughts. But without further ado, let's hop in and meet the friends of the Friend Zone. Welcome, friends, or should I say, Tarnished.
Hello.
Hey there.
First off, we got Kevin. Thank you for joining me.
Hey everybody, I'm Kevin. I'm here to engage in all manner of maidenless activity.
Yes. And as always, we have Patrick.
Hello. I'm here and ready to lose all my runes.
That's true. Okay. So let's talk about let's start with kind of the anticipation of the game. I think I'm trying to think back to Game Awards like 2018, 2019 or something like that, where all we got was like a From Software logo and like a bloody arm or something like that. So
I think this is pretty normal for FromSoft games. They typically don't show very much until the game is fairly far along, and then they'll do a network test or something, and that's usually the first time that that you get any kind of real sense of what the game is. And they tend to be very close to the chest with that stuff, and that goes with, I mean, it's a FromSoft game.
Mm-hmm.
They have a very, very dedicated fan base.
Yep.
And they haven't really missed as far as making like a great game every time. So there's that studio reputation that I think really helps them do that. And I mean, the marketing for Elden Ring has also been huge, especially as it got closer to release. But
yeah, I mean, it like a couple years running, it was like most anticipated game at the Game Awards. Take it with that as you will, but there was definitely like a dedicated hype train around Elden Ring, especially as we got into like 2021 and leading up to launch.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean, it's any FromSoft game tends to have a fair amount of hype around it these days. That's only going to be more now that Elden Ring has kind of gone more mainstream than even some of their other games, I think. It's going to be really interesting to see what their next project is.
Definitely
following Elden Ring, but
and talking a little bit about like FromSoft's pedigree, and like you said, there haven't been a lot of misses. I know that Bloodborne was really popular, especially as a console exclusive, and then
God, I wish they would remaster that game or something.
Definitely.
They refuse to acknowledge it, and it's so good.
And then Sekiro won Game of the Year in 2018 or so.
I have more to say about Sekiro because I finished Elden Ring and immediately went and finished my platinum on Sekiro.
Okay. So like you said, they're definitely been kind of building up. The one thing I want to say about the hype train is that like and I think we all saw the meme of like lots of games have been super hyped ahead of launch and then been misses, especially with the Colossal miss that was Cyberpunk's launch. So like
I
I
feel
think
like
it
that.
was
Yeah.
yeah.
That sort of set off a series of, yeah. I think there's there's a lot of mistrust now about big overhyped game launches, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't know how you guys feel overall about Elden Ring, but I mean, the general consensus seems to be that they did not miss on that.
Yeah, no, I think that's
No.
yeah, I mean I completely agree. I mean like I have here, I got the whole review scores. Like,
Yeah,
review scores come out and it's 94 Metacritic. So like, yeah,
I mean, yeah, there's no way it's not on like everybody's game of the year list, you know.
yeah, definitely can see that coming for.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
the one thing I did want to say about review scores that kind of left me, and it wasn't wary. It was just kind of something that I needed, like the review scores I needed to take with a grain of salt, because each of the platforms, or each of the platforms for reviews, like they all have, I assume now, have their dedicated FromSoft like player, and so
Sure.
like this being exactly what people have wanted for a long time. Like, they were I don't want to say like trigger happy, but like
I mean,
the people
the
reviewing it were mega fans.
sure. I mean, the people reviewing it are probably the most likely person in a certain office to enjoy a game like that, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think that it's worth saying, like, Elden Ring, I think, is also the most approachable FromSoft game of, I think, any of them, honestly. Just as far, it's still like got a lot of its Dark Soulsiness in it, but I think there was a distinct effort made to make it more accessible to new people who haven't played a FromSoft game before. Did you guys get that sense at all?
Yeah. Um, I don't want to say accessible because that has become like a trigger word
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
online.
I guess I'm out of the loop
Uh,
for
be,
that.
No, you're good.
well, because like accessibility, right, for people is like a different thing than like approachability. So I think, yeah,
Okay,
definitely more approachable and more like
sure.
friendly to the player in terms of like finding ways to advance that aren't just get good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I completely, I agree. I mean, I have very limited experience with the FromSoft games, so I'm coming at it from that angle. I mean, the most FromSofty I played before this was like Jedi Fallen Order, so you
Oh
know,
gosh.
so this was kind of like my first FromSoft game, and I definitely think that it was approachable. It was the most approachable. I'm curious what you kind of already said that it's kind of the most approachable, Kevin, but like in your experience of playing, I want to probably all of the FromSoft games, like that.
Other than like Armored Core. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Um. Yeah. I mean, I think it was an interesting balance because the game, you know, uh, I think it was like a lot of aspects of how the narrative is set up and stuff, even though it's still very, narrative backward, like a lot of these are,
mhm.
was still a little more clear and like there's less ambiguity in a lot of the characters and stories in this, which I think was interesting, and I think I like that. Um, but as far as gameplay went, I think that it was still. I didn't really feel any difference once I got into it. It was still fun. I don't really have like positive or negative opinions about it. I'm glad that more people were able to approach this type of game and feel like they could enjoy it and like it could be for more people, I guess. Um, but that also doesn't diminish that it has some of the harder, more frustrating bosses towards the end of the game of any of these games. I think that I've played. So
Yeah, that's
Mm.
so going back to like review score, like I usually think of, somewhere if it's in the 90s, like and take have whatever opinion you have about Metacritic, but like if it's in the 90s, I kind of have it at like most people like a core gamer would probably get a good experience out of the game regardless of their
Yeah.
general preferences towards genre, and so like I think that goes into like some of the I don't know if it was the marketing or if it was the community around it um or what, but like at the beginning people were kind of selling it like you know this is very different from what FromSoft has done in the past, and like you said, it becomes approachable,
Yeah.
but
I don't.
it's open like at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it's open world Dark Souls.
Yeah, I think that's it, and,
Yeah.
like, I think the differences are overblown. There is a lot of like, this is definitely, like, a huge step forward for, like, the Souls genre and the Souls games specifically,
Yeah,
but, like, I'd also say, like, anybody who liked this, like, go back and play Dark Souls 3 because like, they're they play almost the same. Like,
mm.
if you
The
like the
combat and
combat.
everything
Yeah.
is pretty similar.
Yeah, like if you liked the combat in this game, I mean, the biggest difference is the lack of a jump button. Um,
Mm.
but other than that, like combat in Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring feel really similar. It's more just the world design that plays differently. It's a
And
little
Yeah,
that's
more.
but I think that's the part that makes it approachable here is the
Yeah.
fact that like you're going one way and you're like this is too hard so you can go another way.
Hmm.
Where in Dark Souls like that's rarely an option. It's this is the way you have to go. And I mean at a certain point I mean
Yeah.
there's always like different paths to certain things, but like for the
hmm
most part like you eventually hit a point where you're like I have to do this.
Yeah.
Um and in Elden Ring you can honestly just wonder so like there's like a huge area. Well, and even with like some secrets, like you can pretty much just about go anywhere
yeah,
without any necessary, boss fights that you have to do. So I think that's what makes this more approachable for people because it's like they can hit a wall and like just go a different direction. Whereas in like another Dark Souls game, or in particular like a game like Sekiro,
Well, yeah.
it's like learn to beat it, or that's it.
Um. Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's a little. I do think the design supports some of that. I mean, any Dark Souls game you can go grind souls and get stronger if you're struggling, but that's less engaging than going and exploring somewhere else. And I agree that helps the accessibility. I guess I'll revise my statement and say if you like the combat in this, you'll probably like the combat in Dark Souls because they're the same.
yeah,
I think this is still like a good introduction to those games, though. Like I agree that it's like if you did like this, maybe you should give the Dark Souls games a try because now you at least have a understand. You've learned to. If you've played enough of Elden Ring, you've learned to speak the language. Like
Yeah,
you.
I mean, if you've beaten Elden Ring, you're not gonna really struggle. Like you're gonna know how to get through Dark Souls in a way that I
Yeah,
think walls other people off from those games.
exactly. You'll understand like, oh, okay, this is like a new route to this. Oh, this is how items function. Oh, I should be banking my souls and
Yeah.
then leveling up this stat.
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, I need to go upgrade my weapons.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Little things like
yeah.
that where it's just like going in, if you have no idea, those things can dramatically make the game harder.
Yeah,
Well,
totally.
here's a good segue. Although if you go from Elden Ring to some of the previous FromSoft games, the one thing I mean, again, I've very little experience, but what I think I've heard about it is the viability of different builds is potentially different
Mm,
in previous FromSoft games.
um,
I think I mean
kind
that's kind
of.
of where
I
this
mean,
shines, right?
well,
Is
well, no. I think I'm gonna disagree with you there.
okay.
Um, so the one of the real draws of a Dark Souls game is you can beat it as a naked guy with a broken stick. Like
Yeah.
if you get good enough at the game, everything is overcomable with nothing. And it's all and it's all just sort of it can be beat by raw skill. and some people are
Sure.
crazy and do challenge runs like that and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, there are certainly some, there's also, of course, overpowered things. I think that's why, people complain about the difficulty of these games, but I think that one of the most brilliant things about their design is kind of the way that builds and choices on whether to summon and that kind of thing really let you build your own difficulty in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like, you can, and I think that remains true in Elden Ring. Honestly, by the end of the game and getting to a couple of new game plus cycles and trying a bunch of builds, I am annoyed that uh, that there is so much disparity between different play styles in Elden Ring. Because some are
Mm.
just way, way stronger than others.
Yeah, I think I was particularly thinking
Yeah.
of like magic. Like, and again,
Yeah.
I don't know that I don't know the previous FromSoft games, but I thought this one was praised for its magic system being
Um, yeah, this one definitely does
That's
some
deeper,
really
yeah.
amazing things with magic. It takes the foundation of what you see in the other games and just
uh-huh.
there's so many more spells that do different things, and how you find them is such a fun and interesting part of that. But the basic like combat style, if I can stand far away and throw little blobs of blue stuff at people to kill them,
Mm.
is a thing in every FromSoft game.
Uh-huh.
And it is sort of, it is generally another one of the ways that like at least certain bosses tend to be much easier if you have some sort of ranged option against them. So,
Mm.
that's another way to sort of build your own difficulty
Yeah.
if you're struggling. And I think that was even more pronounced in Elden Ring in some ways. Like some builds really struggle against certain bosses where others just
Yeah.
breeze right through them. And almost to the point where it's like, I was thinking to myself, like, did they design this with the intention that people would kind of rock, paper, scissors some of these bosses and like respec to have an easier time with them? I don't know if that was the intention or not.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too, um having recently faced Rykard, and it was like you're given an item to beat him basically, but if it's not viable for your build, like is it
I
still
mean,
viable
yeah,
to use that? Like
I used it on my intelligence build and still just killed him with it. So,
okay. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I tried doing some other things, and then I was like, I'm just gonna try this dumb thing, even though I don't even like meet the requirements to use it. And yeah, I didn't do as much damage as a strength build would with it, but it still
Yeah.
like stun locked him, so you
Yeah.
could just yeah. So that was kind of funny, and that's like directly reminiscent of a fight from Dark Souls 3, where you fight Yorm the Giant with the sword that
Ah.
shoots wind walls at him. Which I guess is I then learned was a reference to a fight from Demon Souls. It's like
Ah.
the lineage of some of these things has been really interesting to watch, like them iterating on some of those ideas. I didn't actually think that the Rykard one was a particularly interesting evolution of that. To get a little
Yeah.
specific on that one, but yeah, it's funny how there's like certain types of bosses that you see like in every game almost.
Sure.
Yeah.
Except Sekiro. Every time I say every Souls game, just assume that I'm not talking about Sekiro.
Right.
Yeah. So what did everybody start as, and how did they kind of build into their character?
Uh,
I started as a what's the prophet?
oh
That was
yeah,
called?
faith
Faith
caster.
based?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Started as a prophet because they start with a spear and like a few faith spells. So there was like really good utility uh right out the gate. Um
yeah.
but like I've gone, you know, all over the place since then. Like now intelligence is my highest stat,
Mm.
followed by vitality or vigor, excuse me.
Yeah.
So
Got a level
like
bigger.
Yeah.
yeah, I've gone like all over the place, mainly because like I'm like, oh, I want to like I'll pick something up and I'm like, that sounds cool, I want to try that, and so I go and grind
Yeah,
out levels to try out new things, and yeah.
Yeah, I
But
think that's one
also
of
I
the
keep
real.
all my levels. I don't respec, which is kind of
Oh, interesting.
maybe a waste of my time a bit. But I also am like so just unbelievably strong at this point. It feels awesome.
What
Yeah.
level are you?
Um,
I'm just curious how you stack up to me because I've done so many runs
like
through the game.
140 or 145, somewhere in there.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that's around what I was when I finished my first playthrough.
And like I haven't, like I still haven't gone into like the capital city.
Oh wow,
Oh
really?
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dang.
Cool.
Okay. Um, yeah. So I started as a. I kind of waffled back and forth because I knew I wanted to do like a magic build because I had heard how cool the magic was from the previews and stuff.
Yeah.
But I decided to do what I normally do in my first run through of a FromSoft game, and I just picked the knight class. So I started as a
Cool.
vagabond.
Cool.
You start with the classic straight sword and shield combo and good armor, and you. I like those classes because they start with high vitality and pretty good endurance generally, and
Uh-huh.
I know that even if I want to change my build, I'm always going to want vitality and endurance.
Yeah.
Um, and then their casting stats are balanced. They both start at 9, so I knew I could
Okay.
sort of tailor that. And then I kind of took a knight, and then instead of going like a strength build or something with it, I just immediately started to build int
Okay.
with the vagabond.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
um, and that was I for most of the game I was like an int, sort of an int build slash smashy. I got the claymore pretty quickly, and then
Okay.
uh, got an int enchantment on that, and then eventually swapped to the Moonlight Greatsword once I finished all of that quest,
Ooh. Yeah.
and also learned that dual wielding is awesome. And so I started to, I was like, I want to dual wield a Moonlight Greatsword and the Claymore, and
Ooh.
that was my main build for my first playthrough.
Very cool. Yeah, I started out. I was really hesitant because like I really wanted to play this kind of like sword and board going. What I was, what I thought as is like the typical Dark Souls experience. But then I decided to go warrior because I really wanted to like see how the viability of like a dex build.
Hmm.
Um, I quickly got rid of like the second scimitar, or at least I wanted to try dual wielding, so I like got rid of the buckler or whatever.
Hmm.
And then quickly found the curved longsword.
Nice.
Um, and I've been holding on to that ever since. And I'm like, I just beat the fire giants. That's been my main weapon
Yeah.
pretty much the entire game.
That is one nice thing. Like if you find a weapon that just vibes with you, like
Yeah,
you can upgrade that, and it'll the differences between fully upgraded weapons aren't, unless you're like really trying to min max, going to be negligible. Like any weapon can take you to the end of the game,
oh
and it's
sure.
all about. That's one of the things I like. It's like it's a lot of it is about finding a move set that vibes with how you want to play.
Yeah,
I
there
mean,
was there was a I really liked. I had like a dedicated, like one of my dedicated sessions early on was just like sitting, like running around the same area with different weapons and just
mhm,
seeing like what do I like. And I was like, okay, I just
yeah,
got the twin blade, like this is fun. You know I like whirling the twin blades around. And then I just fought the like first invader that has like the blood dagger and just keeps throwing like blood
oh
lines
yeah,
at
that
you or whatever. And I was like,
yeah,
do I
that
Oh
want to
yeah.
go? Do I want to go dual wield daggers and like throw blood at people? So I just like ran around like the same, like the first group of
yeah,
enemies and was just like, which one of these do I vibe with? Um,
yeah. That dagger is
yeah.
great early game. That blood
Oh
dagger,
yeah.
blood builds
Yeah, if you have the
in
arcane
general are
for it.
really,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
blood
that
builds
was
are really strong.
Yeah, and that was like I have in my game journal was just like, okay, what stats do I need? Like I really like this spell, so I need like 15 faith, and I really like these daggers, so I need like 13 arcane,
Hmm.
and like okay, I need like a certain dex. I was a little perturbed that I had to like put a bunch of points in early game strength to be able to wield the curved sword, but
Hmm.
eventually like You know,
Yeah,
17, like 17 or 18 is small compared to like some of the items you have to pick up and
yeah.
use. Yeah,
Anything sub 20, it's just like, okay, that's just the tax to use the weapon I want. And
yeah.
um, yeah, for sure.
And I didn't quite understand the system at first, where it was like I feel like I was like reading something and it was like if you wield it in two hands, like you don't need the stat requirements or something like that. Maybe I read something wrong. And then it was like all of a sudden I finally put that like final point to be able to wield a weapon at full efficiency, and it went from like 200 damage to like 600 damage. I was like, okay, okay, I get it. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, you do
yeah, and
need the yeah.
I think, well, I don't know if this, I didn't actually double check this in Elden Ring. I know in past games, it's like for the purpose of wielding heavier weapons, like if you wield it in two hands, it like multiplies your strength by 1.5,
Uh,
just for the purpose of meeting its stat requirements. So,
mhm.
but I don't actually know if that was a thing in Elden Ring or not.
Yeah, I never
Interesting.
tried.
Yeah, me neither.
So
Um,
how then does
At
dual
this,
wielding
oh,
work? Sorry.
dual, sorry, dual wielding's rad. I mean, you just have to meet the item requirements for both weapons. But
Interesting.
the trick is if you have a weapon of the same like type in each hand. So like,
Hmm.
there's the weapons are in broad categories. There's, and it says it on the weapon, there's straight swords, curved swords,
Yeah,
great swords, ultra great swords, spears, scythes, all of these
yeah.
like broad categories that there are a bunch of different weapons in. If they fall into that same type, there's an extra move set you unlock so that if you're dual wielding them, your L1 button becomes an attack with both weapons instead of just one of the weapons.
Interesting.
Um, and there's a special move set that unlocks for each weapon type when you dual wield them,
But you can
which
still
is
use your. Would you still use the ash from your primary weapon if you use?
yeah, your L2
yeah.
is still your primary weapon's ash.
Okay.
But yeah, that was a lot of, once I realized that, I like was trying to equip all of them. Like, what are the cool dual wield animations for each of these? And then
Mm.
I became a dual wieldy man for a while.
I
Great
did.
swords. Then I tried ultra great swords for a while. I did scythes for a little while. It's fun.
I did just get two whips, and I was like, "Ooh, do I want to like go super bleed and like just see about
Dude,
like dual wield whips and what that'd be like?"
dude, it's good. Do the whip dual wielding animation, like the dual wield attacks
Uh
animations, are
huh.
really really cool.
Yeah.
That range.
Yeah, they're very long range, and like a lot of them have like really wide arcs too. So like fighting groups is fun with them.
So Patrick, as a faith builder, are you buffing your spell or yourself? Or are you casting spells to do damage, or are you using a specific weapon set?
So for a long time, I was like faith, and then so I was like faith and dex for a long time because I was doing like faith like dragon faith spells,
Okay.
Oh right, yeah.
and then I was using like pole arms.
Okay.
So I was doing that for a really long time, and then I don't know. I guess I just kind of hit a point where I was like, I feel like switching things up, and so I
Yeah,
started like leveling other things. So at this point, like none of my stats is below like 20 in the low 20s,
Interesting.
so I can because
Pick
now
up
I'm at the point
anything.
where I
Yeah.
can I can just about wield anything unless it's like one of those items. It's like no, this is for
For
like the
yeah.
dedicated whatever only.
yeah, totally. That's
Um,
pretty cool. That's kind of what
yeah.
I guess I left out a key part of my build, which is early game. I decided to do something that I've fallen in love with since Dark Souls 2, which is do a faith and hybrid build.
Mm.
Um, because I
Mm.
wanted to do like all the magic,
Uh huh.
and so for probably early to mid game, I was like trying to keep faith and int pretty close together. I think I got to 40 int, 40 faith at one point. Um, which was interesting, because I could cast like a ton of spells, but none of them did very as much damage as if I had put uh, all of my stats into one. the big thing then was I did find the Sword of Night and Flame, which is a
Ooh.
Yeah,
special sword that scales off into
uses
and
both.
faith
Yeah.
and has like one of the more insane weapon arts in the game, and that was definitely a thing for a while, but then I got bored of just doing that and using the weapon arts forever, and so that's when I changed to pure int and
Yeah, I mean that's what I
made
love
sword.
about
Yeah.
this game is because like I'd get bored of something and then be like, cool, I guess I'll start doing this then instead. Like I'll,
Yeah.
Yeah, and
and then it
that's
felt like a whole
definitely
new thing, you know?
yeah, and that's definitely something it allows for. Like, there's respecking in some of the other Souls games, but I feel like this one is a lot kinder, and it's like they know you want to explore and you want to try new things, so they facilitated that a little better.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
just like being able to go everywhere and level up in a bunch of different directions, but also just the accessibility of the respec mechanic is a lot more so.
And there's just so many
Yeah,
like
Oh
weapons
yeah.
and items and
so
ways to try things out. Like ultimately I'm at a point now where like I have about like 60 int and like around 25 faith, I think. And
Mm-hmm.
nice.
so like before a fight, I can like throw some faith buffs on myself
Hmm.
and then do some crazy spell damage and then just jump in and finish them off with some melee. And then if I need heals outside of my uh
Tears.
yeah, my flasks or whatever, like I can heal myself with faith magic. So it's like I just have so much utility at this point that
Yeah,
it's great. I've never felt like I've had this much utility in a Souls like, and so it's really fun for me. And that's like I think that's the joy I get out of this game the most compared to other FromSoft games is I really can just do whatever I want. And early game I was like just kind of approaching things where it's like, okay, this is how I'm gonna play, and I just like on this fight's harder for me than other fights, but I'm just gonna get good and beat it. But now I'm like, that guy seems to be kind of weak to this or something. I'm gonna go
yeah.
buy a new range spell, and then I can walk in and I'm just like pop, pop, pop. All right, I won.
Nice.
Yeah,
Sucker.
no, I think
Like
that's part of the like I think that's definitely one of the joys of this game that is a new kind of a novel experience for us from soft game is it's so much easier, especially coming out on the heels of Sekiro. I think it's so interesting how having this and Sekiro back to back is fascinating because Sekiro is the opposite of that, where you're one specific guy with one skill tree and one weapon, and you just
Uh-huh.
have to get good. and
yeah,
And it's like Sekiro, and it's like it's probably the most linear storyline of any FromSoft game, and it's still very good. It's still a very polished game that accomplishes what it does, but it's like the polar opposite of then Elden Ring is like you're anyone and everyone you want to be and go explore everywhere, and there's a ridiculous amount of things for you to use and change
Yeah.
and
yeah.
explore. And it's so fascinating seeing sort of that those are the two games that they've released closest to the present because man, just the breadth of how different the philosophies are in those games is so cool. And
Yeah, I mean, this makes me want to go back to Sekiro actually, because like
yeah,
I love so much about that game, yet I am not good. So I, but now I'm like, you know what? Maybe I could give it another shot.
that was sort of with me like I played through Sekiro and it was sort of the only one I hadn't platinumed. And I
Uh-huh.
Mm,
finished Sekiro and I like took a deep breath and was like, I'm good. I don't want to play more Sekiro.
Mm.
Um, and I finished Elden Ring and I was like, I think I want to play more Sekiro. I went back and like my my like overall rating of Sekiro has probably climbed 10 points after coming back to it from Elden Ring. That game's amazing,
Mm.
and
yeah,
it's
I'm very curious how I'd feel about it now. Going, I don't know, maybe
yeah. I also
just the
think I've
mindset.
yeah. I don't know what it was, but I also feel like I've gotten better at Sekiro than I ever was when I was playing it before. I don't know
Mm.
if that's mindset or what, but you know, I'm on like new game plus 4 in Sekiro now, and I'm still feeling good. So, um,
Yeah, I feel like I'm a little bit like because I played it because I've kind of, like I said, I've had like the one blade pretty much the entire game. So like I feel like like I have a little bit of regret. Like, am I leaving something on the table? But like I did slowly like start adding things to my build. Like all of a sudden, I get my faith up a couple points, and then I do blood flame blade on my my bleed blade, and it's like, okay, now I'm like really making things bleed. And it was like, and then I just like unlocked one of the like, I think flame give me strength or something like that. So it's like I'm slowly getting like a little bit more magical into my build, or faith based into my build, and it's like, okay, now I'm like really hitting things hard. And like there is that moment, like, because all the time, like, the boss do like these big intros, and like, they're just kind of like crawling across the arena towards you or something like that. I'm like, am I supposed to be doing something? And like, at the later game, it's like, oh, I'm casting buff spells and like summoning my mimic tier and like, yeah.
It's all fun and games until, in true FromSoft style, then you walk into the boss that lasers you in the face as soon as you walk in the door.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
There's one particular late game boss where you walk in and it's like everybody's so used to like summoning or buffing right when they walk in, and he just, as soon as you walk in, there's a laser heading straight towards your face.
Oh,
So you have
wow.
to dodge immediately or you get lasered in the face. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
There's just like a few things like that it's like, I see you, player. I know what you're
I know
what
your
you're
Yeah.
up
tricks.
to.
You sit
which is
there
a
buffing for 2 minutes while I
which is a
crawl across the
thing
arena.
that
Yeah.
it's the thing that Miyazaki-san loves to do
Yeah.
in his boss designs
The
sometimes.
the the apparently the Dark Souls troll, or the FromSoft troll, is definitely something to be wary of.
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
let's we talked a lot about builds. Let's talk about the world of Elden Ring. Now, in my understanding of typical, I mean, I guess not. Maybe is they don't they don't hold your hand. They just kind of set you up in the world and
True open
Yeah.
world.
true
Yeah.
open world. Yeah.
And I'll say, like, in a lot of ways, Elden Ring gives you more than some other FromSoft games have, story wise.
Hmm.
Not much more, but
Yeah.
there's also just there's more and more talkative characters and
Yeah.
bosses early in the game than you often run into here. But yeah, it still does not hold your hand. A lot of stuff is on the item descriptions.
Yeah.
It's really interesting seeing that, and then also having that combined with being able to go kind of anywhere you want
Yeah.
right from the start. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that the best the best thing about Elden Ring is its world design,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
my opinion.
One of the
There's a
best open worlds I've ever experienced, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the like just there's a lot of good things going for it combat wise and other aspects of the game, but like the way that they made that map is
Oh yeah.
incredible. The
Yes.
way that it guides you from the moment you step out of that crypt to like, there's always landmarks that you can see, and there's always a
Yeah.
what's over there factor,
Yep.
and then you
Yeah.
go over there and there's always something over
There's
there, and
always
it's
something
usually
there.
cool.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that constant thrill of discovery, that constant, like, it's a fully open explorable world, and yet within it are these beautiful curated environments that really give you a gameplay experience when you find them.
Yeah.
um it's just immensely satisfying from an exploration standpoint.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the loop as well. It's like, I love the design of just like, okay, you come out of the crypt, you see the castle, far off, and like, okay, you might think like, or some people probably think like, hey, that's the next point. I'll head towards the castle. You might hit a wall there, and then you just go out and like explore the rest of it.
Yeah.
And like that's so well done, and yeah, yeah, the world, the map is just so
Yeah,
great.
I
It's
love
just,
that.
yeah.
I love that you can see the Erd tree basically from anywhere on the map. I
Yes.
think that's like such a cool thing, that the Erd tree is just a constant presence in the overworld. I
Hmm.
don't Yeah, it's just, that's like one aspect of the game I can just gush about, is how good that world is far from a design standpoint. Man.
Yeah, I mean, so many times I've talked to other players, a lot of them like new to FromSoft, and they're like, they started and they started going into the castle, and they're like, I just can't get through it. It's too hard. And I'm like, oh, well,
Yeah,
did you go south?
I know. I almost
Did
wish
you
there
head
was a
east? Like,
yeah, that southern peninsula. I almost wish there was a little bit more early in the game to encourage players to know that they can go that way,
Yeah.
because that that southern peninsula in particular, there's a lot of good stuff down there, and
Yep.
it's lower level than the castle.
Yeah.
So like it's really better to go down that way first. Um, and I think that's part of the exploration aspect, is they really want you out there looking and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's and then you wander into Caelid and you're like, oh, I should not be here.
I should not be here.
No one should be in Caelid.
Or you get teleported to the freaking temple in Caelid, and then you're like, rather than teleport back, I'm gonna walk back, and it was like,
That was my first exposure to Caelid, was getting trap chested out there and being like, well, while I'm out here, maybe I can get like some higher level stuff or something. So,
yeah,
like, oh, I can get some higher level crafting materials while I'm here, maybe, as long as I'm cautious. And, that was fine too. But
yeah,
Caelid is a terrible place.
yeah.
I don't like those birds, man.
Oh, or the
Those freaking
big-headed
birds.
dogs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of traveling, new to FromSoft is the horse, or
Yeah.
Torrent the
Torrent, the best
goat.
mountain in any video game ever. God
Ooh, yeah.
damn, Torrent is good.
Oh, yeah.
I just the ease of use, how fast you can get on and off of him,
Oh, yeah.
the fact that the horse is the way that you can double jump. I
Mm-hmm.
just Man, they did a good job of making sure that that horse is there and necessary for exploration, and it is not in your way or frustrating to use.
yeah,
And
controls
yeah,
so well.
yeah,
Yes.
Like, it feels better to be on torrent than to not.
Yeah.
yeah. It's crazy. Like they actually made it feel like, oh yeah, being on horseback is an advantage in the overworld, and I can exploit that advantage if I need to.
Yeah.
And
Now,
yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong on this, because again, I realize that in terms of the actual scope of like the main line of the game, I am not that far still. Um, but like torrent doesn't change, right? Like there's
no,
no.
No.
Okay,
no,
and so that might be one of my biggest, like, I wouldn't call it critique, because clearly it's done as intended, but like
Yeah.
my disappointments in the game, where it's like so much can be modified
yes,
and changed, and
Mm.
the joy of finding new items and stuff is like so like
Mm-hmm.
integral to the gameplay loop. The fact that it's torrent, it's always torrent never changes.
Mm.
Like,
I
I was like,
yeah,
I wanted to, like, oh, it's like, oh, I found a new mount, like a new bell that calls a different mount, or like
Mm.
or maybe I unlocked a way to like do like add things to torrent, even if it was like cosmetic or something.
I
I
know.
wanted to do more with torrent
Mm.
or
Yeah.
with mounts in general.
Yeah, but what you didn't realize is that Torrent is playing Sekiro, even while you're playing Elden Ring. So there's also Torrent, um,
Yeah,
and this is what Torrent does. Uh, no, I agree with you, and I felt that a little bit too. I thought it would have been cool. You heard it here first. Get players request horse armor DLC for Elden Ring.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
No, but
I get.
I mean, it would have been cool if there was like an equipable for Torrent, or some way to
Mm-hmm.
unlock, a triple jump for Torrent or something.
right.
Mm.
Yeah, an
Um,
extra jump, reduce fall damage. I don't know. Make him.
God, fucking
He has like a bubble, so he can take one hit before taking damage from like a
yeah,
big enemy. It's
or even
like
even
little
just a
things
way
that
to
just.
upgrade his health or something.
Oh,
Sometimes
Yeah,
yes. I
it's
mean, yeah.
correct.
Even late game. Yeah. I definitely
Yeah,
want his health bar to be
and
bigger.
I get it. Like I can totally understand why they did what they did with Torrent,
Mm-hmm.
because they wanted it to be as tight and as they wanted a very specific experience out of what it was like to mount an Elden Ring. And I think once
Hmm.
they had it, they were just like, "This is it,"
Hmm.
and they didn't want to mess with it, or that wasn't a design space that there was a lot of interest on the team in exploring, or who knows what happened in the development. But I get why it is that way. It would be really cool to be able to like upgrade torrent or get new
Yeah,
mounts, or I don't know. I'd love to like be able to
utilize
equip
them more in
armor to
combat
him, or
or
change the way torrent looks a little bit or something.
sure.
But that would be
Yeah.
cool.
I'm trying to think back to way at the beginning. I did get semi frustrated because I thought there was somewhere specific I had to go to get torrent,
Mm.
and then it's just like a triggered thing. So like
Yeah, I looked that up because I was curious. You just have to like visit 3 sites of grace,
yeah,
um, other than like the first one that you
yeah,
find.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
was like, I remember like I'm not gonna go to bed until I get the horse, and then like 3 hours later, I'm like. I still haven't gotten the horse, and I finally like go back to a site of grace and like rest at a site of grace, and I talk to, and then she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna give you a friend," and I was like, "Oh, I just had to come back here," and then I realized like, oh, I had done some exploration and found a couple more sites of grace. Yeah,
Yeah. I know there were a few folks that were like, "How do I get the damn horse?"
yeah,
But, yeah, I don't
because I
know. I
think
just like it happened for me completely organically, which I guess is how it
interesting.
was supposed to happen. But I know that that's not the case for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think like even like George was explaining to me like, oh, you gotta go to the castle to get the horse or something like that, and I was like, do I? And then but then it's
Man,
like I could see how that could happen organically. Like on your way to the castle, you find 3 sites of grace, you get it at this specific spot, but like
man,
but
that was another one of the most fun things in Elden Ring. The game was so freaking big. You almost got a little bit of that schoolyard, like talking about
yes,
Legend of Zelda or something like, "Oh,
Yeah.
you gotta
yeah,
go find this secret item, but you have to like crouch in this corner." And like, "Oh, I heard a rumor that
yeah,
and
Right.
like
yes.
that was definitely a fun aspect of like talking to people
Oh
while
yeah, the water cooler
everybody
moments
was
are
playing it.
definitely
Yeah,
very much alive in this game, um, which is great because just there just is so much. There's just so much world and like
hmm
yeah, I 80, 90 hours in, I'm like I bet there's just stuff back in freaking Limgrave that I didn't touch.
yeah. You definitely didn't
Yeah.
find everything.
Almost
There's
certainly.
just
Yeah.
there's just no way that you did.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I go back. Like, I'll be in a place that I feel like I've just combed, you know, north to south. There's just no way. And then I'll
yeah,
go somewhere else, and then I'll come back, and then immediately
Yeah,
stumble upon something that I missed last time I was in the area
yeah.
somehow.
absolutely. God, some of the stuff is really, really hidden too.
Oh yeah. Oh, and just like the
Well, like, I looked everywhere for the jar guy, Alexander, I
Oh,
oh
think.
yeah.
yeah.
Never found him. Never found him. I
Wow.
didn't look. I didn't want to look things up for that kind of stuff. I wanted to
Mm.
come across it, but yeah, never found him.
Yeah, he was
He
another one.
he helped me fight, but I never found him.
Oh
Yeah, he
yeah.
was another one. I just like stumbled across his stuck ass. Um, he's hilarious, man. You do his storyline. You have to help him out of the hole, and then you find him stuck in the ground like 3 more times, and one time you
Yeah.
have to like oil him up.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
hilarious.
So let's
Also,
talk about kind of narratives, and we'll get into like individual NPC quests. But
yeah.
um, uh, yeah, what did we think of? I
Oh,
guess how
gosh.
did we engage with the story of Elden Ring?
I
Not
mean,
like I do with most Dark Souls games, not particularly heavily, I guess,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I
story is a
enjoyed it.
strong word.
yeah,
Yeah. Dark Souls games more have like, settings than they do
Yeah,
stories in a lot of
yes,
ways.
settings and events.
Yeah,
yes,
and I would say Elden Ring maybe has more of that going on, but I mean it's still like the basic premise of the Souls games that you usually find yourself set up with is like all the big shit in the story has already happened by the time you get there, and you're kind of
yeah,
just cleaning up everything.
yes,
Uh, and learning about what already happened to get the world into the state that it's in.
yeah,
And there are a few like big story beats that still, happen in Elden Ring that are significant to like
Yeah.
advancing the world state and stuff. But
Yeah.
it's it's still these things are always very background in FromSoft games, and they're there if you want to go digging through and be a lore archaeologist, which is fun, but they're also completely out of your way if you just don't engage with them.
Yeah. Did we feel the George R. R. Martin aspect? Like he was involved, right? Like in the
He did
narrative or world building. Like, did we feel his
he helped
influence
with
in there?
he helped with the world design, but I
Okay.
mean, I'd I'd be interested. I can just hear George talking about the game. Oh yeah, I did a little bit of world. We talked a little bit about the world 4 years ago, and then I went away, and I didn't hear anything about it. And then the game came out, and I hear that people really like it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, George, how's
Yeah,
that book? How's that book coming,
I,
buddy? Uh,
I feel like I could see his touches in certain things where it's like
yes,
whenever there's like a group of people,
yeah,
like a group of people in some sort of cahoots. I don't know. Like I can see like the like White Mask Vare and his like
Mm.
yeah.
weird cult of the like I could
Bloody
see
fingers.
the bloody finger. Yeah, like I can see like elements like that where I'm
Yeah,
like
Uh-huh.
that feels like him,
yeah.
you know.
The
But
biggest
like in
thing that
terms of the actual design of everything, it's just yeah, no
There's
way.
it's all very from softy. Yeah, that's why I think that he like basically laid out like the pantheons and named some of the characters and did some genealogies and stuff. Because like
Yeah.
where I really
Yeah.
feel his presence is like the family trees of the demigods and
Yes.
stuff.
Hmm.
Because that does feel very like Martini with just like
Yeah, like the
all of
demigods
these
that like were banging each other and
yeah, all
doing
these
like
intertwining incestuous demigod relationships and there's a lot of like characters with very similar names and similar families, which is a naming convention from, a
Yeah.
lot of medieval settings that Martin
Yeah.
is very fond of.
Yeah.
It does make it a bit confusing when you're
Oh
talking
my
about
God. Yes. Just
yeah,
Renala and Raya
yeah,
and
yeah, Rena and Ronnie and
and
Renala
Radon
and
and
Radon and
yeah.
all the R's.
Rykard and
Yes.
well, I mean, and those are all the Carrion royal family. All of the R names are the Carrion royal family,
Yeah.
and
And
it's
then
like,
Michaela and Millicent and
yep,
and yeah and yeah Manila yeah
yeah, and Godwin and Godfrey and Godefroy and
yes oh my God yeah like
Margaret and Margot and
yeah, well, yeah, and then there's Margit and
and
Margot who
more
are the same guy, but
yeah,
yeah
but not
but
but
not named the
but
same
is
yeah
oh wait, is he the same guy? Okay,
yeah
was that an alias? I don't know.
yeah
haha, you thought it was me,
Thought it was
Margaret, but it's actually me, Margot.
Margot
Morgott. It's like,
Yeah,
okay,
uh,
we're gonna fight again, right?
you fool.
you've got egg on your face
Yeah.
what I, I haven't seen
I
you in
know.
60 hours
You know what I found out in my subsequent playthroughs was that guy can be a lot more freaking present in your games than he was for me in my first time through. Like
oh
there are
wow
several points on your way to the capital where his ass will just ambush you in the overworld if you go to the right place.
oh
I
wow
fought him. I fought him in like this battlefield on the way up to the capital. He just like he
Yeah.
took over the body of one of the
Yeah, he's just like, "I
random
see you."
peasants out there.
Yeah, he's like, "I see you there, tarnished," and he comes at you again, and it's like, "Oh,
Yeah, and
fuck."
I just kicked his ass again because
Yep.
I was
nice
like, "Oh, same attack pattern." Huh.
Yeah, yeah. "Oh, you're the same? I've gained 80 levels
Yeah,
since we last met.
yeah
Goodbye, sir." Also, I'm riding Torrent this time, which I couldn't do the first time we fought, so,
right. Yeah,
yeah
um,
torrent OP
but, yeah. That said, like, the comedy of the freaking name soup
names
that
yeah
gets thrown at this. I did like the setting. I thought that it was really interesting, sort of seeing who these demigods were, and especially I watched Vati's Vidya's first lore video, and I've been
mm.
reading some item descriptions and stuff, and
yeah
it's interesting to see how it all fits together. And yeah, there's some interesting hidden tidbits in there, which is fun.
yeah. I think with games like this, you kind of I think they do it right because like too much if there's too much story happening in the world, then it always begs the question of like who are you?
Yeah.
Like who is the player character?
Yeah.
Because if you're like the whole point of this game is that you're not of import, you know? So it's
Yeah.
like
So
if you
yeah,
yeah.
one of the things that I thought was really interesting, and was kind of the best way that I've seen them do like who the player character is in Elden Ring, I think, other than like Sekiro where you're an
Right.
actual
A
character.
guy. Yeah.
Um, like because most of the time the intro in the Souls games are like these are a bunch of the big bosses and demigods you're going to fight late in the game. You're being raised, or you're here to beat them up. Here's
Yeah, you're like, why? And they're like,
yeah,
just it's
just
what you do.
because you do. But in Elden Ring, the characters that they name in the intro are the other tarnished.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and the implication is like, it's all rise ye tarnished, and it's naming all of the tarnished that are rising to seek the Elden Ring and become Elden Lord.
Hmm.
And then you're sort of the last one is like, and one more tarnished of little import or renown. It's like,
Yeah.
so it's like they're naming all of these famous tarnished that are raised and are seeking the Elden Ring. And then there's like, it's also you, and you are also one of these, and like all the tarnished are members of Godfrey's army that was exiled from the lands between by Marika
Yeah.
in the early times. So it's like you're all returning home, basically, kind of.
Yeah,
But
it's
the Elden Ring
very
shattered, and
Elden Ring
it's
feels very much to me like an it's not really a story. It's more like an epic poem
yes.
where
Oh
it's
Ooh.
God,
like
there's
it's like the
so much of
Odyssey, you
that.
know, it's like
Yeah,
it's very
Yeah.
Homeric where it's like yeah, it's like it's there are so many like lineage is there, you know, like it's like there's all this information that's there, but like what it's really more of this like poetic like epic of like one
yeah,
tarnished gradually becoming
yeah,
Elden
Yeah.
Lord.
Yes.
yeah. I thought that was so cool, and I thought that it was really interesting that like, and then all of those other tarnished are not enemies that you run into. They're like some of the main NPCs that you interact with throughout the game,
Yeah.
which I thought was really cool. What you learn later is that each one of them is tied to one of the game's endings.
Ah, yes.
And basically, by doing their quest is how you unlock the different endings for
Mm.
most,
Right.
which is pretty cool and interesting. Um, so yeah, I thought that was a really interesting sort of inversion, and I totally agree, Patrick. It feels like an epic
Yes.
poem
Yeah.
in a way that I find really compelling and interesting.
Yeah. It's a really good balance because you like meet other tarnished and like so it's like okay I'm not like one in a I'm not the I'm not the savior or whatever like you meet other tarnished it's a and but it's like but I'm progressing things so it's like okay like I am feeling more and more powerful as I meet other
Dude,
people and
yeah,
yeah it's a
I
really cool
know.
balance for the narrative.
I love the way that you interact with Gideon Ofnir throughout the game.
Mm,
He's really interesting because he's like kind of the closest thing you have to like a competitor or a compatriot in some
yeah.
ways. Because he's always like, but he just stays in round table hold, and he's the all knowing, so he's just trying to learn everything that he can about everything, and that's
Yeah.
his path to the Elden Lord. But at the same time, it's like, especially you get later in the game, because like he sort of starts as giving you a
Yeah.
lot of like if you're not sure where to go, he'll tell you about the demigods, tell you where you should go next,
Yeah.
tell you what your next steps are, and then you get far enough in the game to where like you're going places that he doesn't know about,
Yes.
and then you can go back to him and tell him about those places, and he like starts giving you like he starts paying you for the knowledge. Basically, he teaches
Yeah.
you spells and stuff, and then that uh yeah, I mean, I don't do you guys care about like spoilers for later in
I
the
already
game?
know.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, when you fight him like really close towards the last
Mm-hmm.
boss, and like based on what you've told him, he gets like different abilities if you've told him about different things
Oh, interesting.
versus if you, yeah, which
Oh,
is,
that's cool.
I mean, it's too bad he's like a complete pushover, which is too bad. But
Mm.
but like yeah, like certain like if you tell him about the Hallig tree, if you tell him about
Yeah,
the Lord of Blood, he'll
Moog.
like
Yeah.
the implication is that then he goes down there and like takes some of their power, and now he has some of the like same abilities that those bosses had or that you can get from those bosses and stuff, and that he uses them against you,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
which is pretty
I
funny.
like I just randomly happened because I did White Bear's quest, and then I finally like used the talisman or whatever to like go to the area of blood, and then I took out Moog, and it was like, and then I bring it back to Gideon, and he was like, "Oh, I didn't know about this guy," and like, "Oh, you managed to
Yeah,
defeat him, and you found out where Michaela was," and
yeah,
like, and he's like, "Oh," and then he like, "This is this is what I give you," and he gives me like this really cool, like, awesome spell, and so it
yeah,
was like a really good way of like, "Oh, I haven't been back to Round Table Hold in a while," and
yeah. I thought that the dynamic that you have with him, where like you sort of surpass him in your
yeah,
knowledge of the lands between,
yeah,
and then you can still continue to have those conversations with him about what you're teaching him now. I thought that was really a really interesting way to do that sort of guide character.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
Speaking of like character quests and stuff, this is probably maybe one of my biggest points of frustration
yeah,
was just, I mean, it's awesome from like a quest design like perspective that a lot of quests are just intermingled with each other, but like if you progress one quest too far, all of a sudden you're locked out of this other quest that you were working on, and like it's
yep,
very hard to keep track of like who's
yeah,
where and what, and like did I talk to that person 3 times or only twice, unless I didn't like trigger the next thing. Like the quests, while very
yeah,
interconnected and fun, I've been locked out of a bunch of them that I thought I was like following very closely, and then now I'm just
Yeah.
kind of frustrated.
yeah. And that is how NPC quests are generally handled in every FromSoft game. And this time I am talking about Sekiro too. Um, and it can be really frustrating. And that's like I think I've just played enough of these that I learned to stop worrying and love the jank. And first
Yeah,
playthrough, I know I'm gonna miss a bunch of quests, and second playthrough, I'll look up next steps and try and make sure I complete as many as I can. And that's just
yeah,
kind of how I do that. But it is tough. One thing I'll say is it's nice that you can't really lock yourself
the big
out of
one.
the ones that give you endings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
Like
is
I thought
good.
I had really screwed up the quest with Blyde and Ronnie
Yeah.
Ah,
because he's like, yeah, come meet me down
yeah.
Oh
uh
yeah.
Kron.
And
here. We're
Noctron.
gonna
Yeah.
yeah, and I was like, okay, cool. I'll meet you there later for and then I went and I uh unlocked like the festival for fighting Radon.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, oh shit, I was supposed to do that before this. And then but then Blyde was there and was like, hey, I was waiting for you. I didn't see you there. Oh well, let's kill this guy, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you skipped like one step where Blyde says, "Let's go to the festival," and
Yeah.
fortunately,
yes.
that Ronnie quest in particular is very good for about adapting to what you do in what order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is good because it's tied to one of the endings, and it's the biggest quest chain in the game as far as NPC quest chains go. So,
Yeah.
um,
Like even
like
the Fia quest, like I thought that was really like well done, but like it was a little bit confusing on how to interact with it. And then I think it wasn't until like 60 hours in the game that I'd like figured out how to get the like posing guy in the black armor at the roundtable hold to like invade you. And so
oh yeah,
yeah, and so it was
that
like
guy attacked me like really early.
yeah,
I
and
don't
like
even I'm
yeah,
not even still
Oh
sure
yeah,
what
I
I
don't
did
even
to trigger
know.
it.
Yeah, I
I
don't know
just
what
like
triggered it
floated into
either. I
roundtable
showed up
hold.
one time.
Yeah, and he's just like, "I'm gonna fucking kill you," and I'm like, "No, you're not. You're dead. The heck?
Yeah. Thanks for your armor.
Who the hell are
yes,
you? Oh, your armor looks like a skeleton. That's cool."
yeah,
I tried to talk to you like every time and you didn't
Yeah,
say
well,
shit.
that's one of my favorite messages. Is like, there's always a message around that guy that says like, "Could this be Edge,
yeah,
Lord?"
yes, yes, yes,
And that tickles me.
yeah. Um, Well, cool. Let's talk about some of the good big old boss fights.
Yeah. So this is actually one of the areas that I think Elden Ring is weaker than a lot of other FromSoft games.
Interesting.
I think that some of the early bosses are really, really excellent,
Hmm.
and I think that a lot of the bosses are designed in ways to where if you haven't played a lot of FromSoft games, you won't notice it, but they have deliberately put delays into their timings and stuff that fuck with your reflexes if you're used to how these timings usually work, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
but at the same time, some of the later game bosses are I don't think are particularly well designed, even if they're very cool. Um, I don't think they're very fun to fight, and I think that Elden Ring does something that they haven't really done in these games before. Where there's not really they don't give you openings like ever, so it's like really hard, especially with a slower weapon, to engage with these boss fights sometimes, especially if you're trying to beat them without summoning.
Yeah.
It's almost like they were
Right.
designed with the intention that you would be using the summoning mechanic, and that's how these
Right.
bosses
And
were
casting
designed.
spells and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's like otherwise, if you don't have like a summon to distract them, it's really hard to even find time to hit some of these enemies.
Yeah.
And
Um,
on the other side of that, like I feel like some of my summons are so good that like I can
Yes.
just pop my
there are
summon,
also, yeah,
stand back, and like really just like range attack while they tank the whole thing, and then I'm
yeah,
like not getting hit at all.
Yeah.
exactly. So it's sort of like I feel like it's either one or the other. Um, and I typically my normal thing is I'll try and beat a boss without summoning. And the differences in the NPC summons in this game kind of changed that dynamic a bit. But I still will I'll usually try, and some of
Yeah.
these are just there's no fucking way.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That was and I know there's a way. Don't at me.
Right.
Yeah.
I know that what's his butt 23 has beaten it with a shard of broken glass wearing nothing but a pot on his head or whatever,
Yeah.
but I for me it was I found some of those, especially the later game boss designs, Melania and the Elden Beast in particular, to be very frustrating
Yeah.
in a way that I didn't find fun to fight. And I think that's a pity because bosses can be designed in a way that are very fun to fight, even if they're really fucking hard in these games.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Do
so
you
Like,
guys have a favorite?
let's see for Elden Ring. I think that's the other thing is
ooh,
I don't know if I do. Um, there's a lot of fairly good ones.
I liked
Mm,
the I liked the Moog fight
Moog is pretty good. Yeah.
because I was like really struggling to like try and heal through like some of his attacks, and then like and then I remembered like I barely touched my mixology physics or whatever,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden I like finally look at it and like I have 20 different ways that I can mix it together, and it was like there's this one that was just like, oh, something something summon signs like have little effect on you, and it was like, yeah, that was one of the things I was frustrated with the boss was just like, oh, how am I supposed to heal through this thing? Like I've got four of these red rings around me. Like how do I get through this? It was like it kind of likened it to like a yeah, like the staged bosses or something like that. We're like, okay,
Yeah.
like how do I get through this? And so
Yeah.
okay, I had
And
like I just had to retool myself
yeah,
just a
it's
little bit.
interesting. It's not broadcasted either, but you can actually get a tier for your flask that removes the curse of blood too.
Oh yeah.
I forget where you even find that, but it's specifically only useful in that boss fight, but it
Yeah.
removes the curse of blood from you. It's and that's again rewarding exploration and stuff, which is
And then,
awesome.
yeah, the internet was going crazy about like the stone or whatever that turns Margit off for a couple, and I never found that thing, but
Oh yeah, the
um
shackle. I think you have to buy it from
You have to
Patches.
buy it. Yeah.
ah
Oh, Patches.
yeah.
Speaking of Patches, I think it's really interesting that they've been adding more content to NPC Quest in patches
Yes.
post launch. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Some
that's
of it
probably
was fixing
Yeah.
yeah,
quests that were kind of
yeah,
borked, I think.
yeah. That were either broken or yeah. It's hard to tell if some of them were broken or they just didn't have the endings in the release
Right.
version
Yeah.
for some reason.
Like I spent forever before the patch, like trying to figure out how to get Kenneth Height
Yes.
Yeah,
to go to the castle
Yes.
yeah.
after. I was like, hey,
Definitely.
because he's like, oh, we need a new
Yes, I
person,
must
but first we
find
have to we have to stop him first. We have to kill Godfrey first. And I was like, oh, okay. So I go and kill Godfrey and like I'm doing all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, I keep going back to Kenneth. I'm like, dude, the throne is empty. Do you want it or not? Like,
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I have to find a proper successor.
Yeah.
yeah,
All right. I like Kenneth Height. He's so
Yes.
yeah,
freaking posh,
Yeah.
posh boy.
Well, and just like head south and free up my castle, and I was like, oh, okay. And then like they head south, and like that castle is freaking pain in the ass at first, and
Well, I also
yeah.
again,
He's like,
it's
here's a shitty dagger for your trouble.
yeah, it is kind of a fun example of non-linear of environmental storytelling though, because like Kenneth makes reference to it, and it's like he's trying to like do diplomacy with the demi-humans.
yeah,
And then like you go back once he's there and there's like a bunch of demi-humans around it and like I don't know, I thought that was really funny that like he's like trying to be like a progressive feudal lord or something.
yeah,
Um I don't know. I thought that was a fun little quest chain.
yeah. And I was reading like pre-patch, post
Yeah.
patch. Also, that was one of the quests that I was frustrated with, was trying to get what's her name to take the throne,
Yeah.
and like I think I had progressed Ronnie's quest too much that it got borked or something.
No, I think the trigger was just kind of messed up in the release version of the game. I think
Yeah.
they fixed it now. You have to go back to you have to use the waygate to go back to the cathedral that you start the game in
Mm-hmm.
and pick up like the Stormhawk ashes from there and give them to her, and that like makes her
Right.
find her spirit again, and then she and Kenneth
But I
hook
think
up at some point. I don't
so.
know.
What borked my game was that I also had the Selvius potion, and like
Oh,
she's one of the targets to
oh,
give it to him, and
that.
like I held on to that too long, and then Selvius died. Yeah. So
Oh no, I mean,
yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
well, no, if
that
you
shouldn't that,
you
that
don't want
shouldn't
to
break
give
your
her the
quest.
potion.
Yeah.
You really
Correct.
no, you don't, unless you really want a Nephililu summon,
Yeah.
puppet summon. But it's way better to complete her quest because you get like two end game smithing stones out of it. Yeah.
Wait, so well, because like I thought, because Sylvis he dies. I thought because I went to Gideon and was like, hey,
Yeah.
thought
Oh
this
yeah,
weirdo gave me a potion,
Yeah.
and
yeah. No, it's
and he's like,
implied
oh,
that
just give it to me. And I was like, okay, here. And so now, and then I went back to see Sylvis. I was like, oh, maybe he can teach me some new spells. And he was dead. And I was like, oh, Gideon must have
Uh, yeah, no,
found
you
him.
must have. It's implied that Ronnie kills him once you get to a certain point in her quest.
Yeah.
Basically, if you give her the Finger Slayer blade, then she kills him.
Oh, okay, I
Mm.
did. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pro Ronnie.
Yes.
Yes, very much.
Yep.
One of the
Um.
coolest designs in the whole game, I think.
She's so
Is Ronnie.
cool,
Like,
man. Such an interesting character too.
yeah.
And yeah,
Did Patrick or Kevin, did you guys end up having like a favorite boss?
I actually really. It's weird because like I really the fight in the like Magic Academy with
oh,
the
with
lady
Renala.
that teaches you rebirth,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Renala. It's a super easy fight, like maybe the easiest in the game. Or at least it was for me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Like
No, I think
it
it's
was a
up there
joke.
for easiest boss fights for sure.
But I loved it thematically. Like it
Oh yeah.
was just so interesting. Like it was fun figuring out how to like break her
Yeah.
shield.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought it was just like so creepy with all of her like her baby mages crawling at me.
Yeah.
Her sweetlings.
Her sweetlings, yeah. And then like then once you finally like pissed her off enough, like getting, teleported to like some other plane. Like
Yeah,
I just really liked everything that happens in that fight, even though it's really easy.
yeah, it's really interesting. Her second phase, it's a little ambiguous what's happening there, but you actually hear Ronnie talking before you
Oh.
go into it. And the implication is that it might be like an illusion of what Renala was like in her prime before her spirit
Oh.
was broken.
Mm,
That Ronnie created as like
interesting.
a defense method for her mother,
Interesting.
which is kind of interesting. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I don't know if that's
Yeah.
for sure what's going on. But that's sort of one of the things that could mean. Um, yeah, boss wise, I did like fighting Godfrey at the end of the game.
Okay.
The first Elden Lord.
Yeah.
He's sort of sandwiched between a bunch of bosses that I didn't find particularly satisfying.
Hmm.
I think Fire Giant is the worst boss in the game. Uh,
Mm.
but uh, but yeah,
He looks just stupid hard.
yeah. But Godfrey is really he's fun because it's sort of like a mano a mano. Like I'm the first Elden Lord, you want to be new Elden Lord,
Yeah.
and then in his second phase, he like throws down his weapons and tears his shirt off and tries to like pro wrestling you, which is really funny and intense. And it's that one's like really that one's it feels like a really satisfying climactic fight to me.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, also
I also liked the Radon fight just in that like I'm like for the first half of it I'm just running around just trying to like summon everything I can. So it was just kind of cool to like okay, I'm
as
fighting this big warlord and I'm just like throwing every freaking like random summon person that I can at
yeah
him. It was
as
pretty
like a
fun.
as like a set piece, the Radon
Oh,
fight is awesome.
yeah.
That
Yeah.
fight is
Otherwise, I
super
really
cool.
dislike that fight.
Mm,
Yeah, it's like a set piece with this big guy raining arrows at you, and you have like an army of dudes running it. Like it's very cool, sort of visually and thematically.
yeah.
But the actual fight is like this.
Yeah.
Similar, like
Because it's not a fight, like at
yeah,
least
it's
the
a
way I
goofy
had to
fight.
beat it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was like I was doing the same thing. I was running around. I'm summoning as many people as I can,
Hmm.
and then trying to like throw some magic from far away. Because like if I got anywhere near him, it was just like
yeah.
absolute devastation. And then,
Yeah.
well, like so many times when he does his phase 2 opener,
Oh
I was
god, the
like,
fucking meteor thing. Yeah,
the
Yeah.
meter. Yeah, I was like, okay, here comes, here comes. And then I would like be so ready for it, but it'd still get me, and I'd be like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, yeah. That thing is hard to dodge.
I did see on Twitter. I did see they probably patched it out, but there was a cheese when he goes into meteor form, where if you're at the edge of the water, he like lands
oh yeah.
and just freaking dies. I was like,
Hilarious.
yes,
That's very funny.
Honestly, had I known that, I probably would have done that because I had hit a point in that fight where I was getting really tired of doing it.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think that's another example. Like I was pretty much a full caster build by the time I was fighting him. So I just summoned
mm,
a bunch of goons, and then I stayed far out of his reach and pelted him with spells, and it wasn't that bad.
Mm, yeah.
But like, yeah, getting close to him, especially like before they dropped the patch that nerfed him a little bit,
yeah,
uh, was really really hard. So definitely interesting. I really like Rykard, even though
mm,
his fight is really stupid.
yeah.
Um,
I agree.
I think that his voice acting is hilarious,
Yes,
and I think that his dumb face on like the bottom of the snake is really funny.
yes, yeah. And there's like multiple
Let's
ways to get
devour
to
the
him.
very gods
Yeah,
together.
yeah,
Volcano Manor was a really interesting area,
yeah,
just as far as how the ways like the fact that you can basically skip the whole legacy dungeon if you do their quests and everything.
yeah. I went
Um,
I went up around the back and fought the freaking the bull. Like that's how
oh
I got into
sure,
Volcano Manor, and it was like, is this the way
same.
I was supposed to get in? Like,
I know I missed the trigger for like the invite that teleports you there, so I
yeah,
I also went up that way, fought my way up there the first time.
yeah.
My first. Oh, actually, I don't know if I was like actually in Volcano Manor, but like I got captured by a fucking
Oh
like
yeah,
Oh, by
Iron
the
Maiden,
Iron
the
Maiden.
the
Yeah,
iron, the
yep,
Iron Virgins or
yeah,
whatever they're
Iron
called.
Virgins, yeah, and I got jumped. I got dropped in like the
yeah,
under parts of
yeah,
that.
Yes, That was also the first way I got up there. It doesn't actually connect to the greater Volcano Manor, but
Mm.
Right, but
it's it
it's
is
like
Volcano.
right under where it's right
Yes.
under near it, and so I was
Yeah.
like, oh, maybe I can get up there through here, but yeah, you can't.
Yeah, I know. That was my initial thought when I got in there too. Um, but
Um,
yeah.
yeah. One thing, speaking of like bosses and mechanics and stuff like that, the one thing I did want to have a covered, I mean, anytime a From Software, I think now, anytime a From Software game comes out, you have the like we talked about the accessibility conversation that
Hmm.
comes with this, and then like I think I don't want to get too into like difficulty in video games and should everybody be able to play every video game, but I feel like I I think there were a lot of people that like bought this because people were saying like it's not like every other Dark Souls game, and they picked it up and it was very
Hmm.
much like every other Dark Souls game,
Yeah.
and then like there's just some parts that you can't get through, you know, if you don't if you can't learn the mechanics.
Well, I won't say can't,
Yeah, sure.
um,
Yeah.
because I've seen some really pretty inspiring stories on like the subreddit of people that have overcome some things and managed to to beat the game and stuff, and
Yeah.
never count them out. But yeah, I will say I think as far as like those differences that a lot of people were crowing about at the beginning, they're pretty overblown. I mean, it's a Dark Souls game. Like
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
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 Um
Oh,
one of
going going.
go for it.
Sorry. Did you have? I wanted to backtrack a little bit and just hear. I don't. Did you guys have a favorite NPC?
Uh,
I haven't fully
Yeah.
gotten through Millicent's quest, but I really like
Millicent's
her.
Millicent's rad.
Yeah.
Honestly, your quest ends in kind of an unsatisfying way, if you ask me.
Uh
She's a really cool character.
just like the whole like I hated Caelid just aesthetically, but like just the whole Scarlet Rot stuff,
Yeah.
I like turned into Batman. I soon became like learned to embrace it. Like I like wearing like the clean rot armor
I
and
am
like
the Scarlet
I
Rot.
am the Scarlet Rot. But like yeah, just
Why do
like
you dress like a Scarlet Rot? Because it scares me.
because it's scary. Yeah. Yeah, I've embraced and I'm like I have the dragon breath that like does Scarlet Rot stuff. Yeah. So I've
Yeah.
like fully embraced it. But like yeah, I hated being in that area, but like interacting with like Gowry and her and like doing this quest where I'm like trying to heal her and then like you find her arm and she's following like Millennia's like quest she wants to find.
Yeah.
And like I that's like was super compelling. I really like
I
that.
did. Yeah. I really like that you can summon her for a lot of different bosses too.
Yes.
Um, I thought that was cool because it is sort of like she's traveling along a sort of parallel path to you in some
Yeah.
ways, which is cool.
Patrick, do you have a
uh,
favorite?
yeah, I really like Ronnie.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I just love like she's creepy but like cool, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
um, but I also really like the little demi-human
Oh,
seamstress
Bach.
seamster
Oh, Bach.
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 Yes.
Bach
I
the
like Bach.
Teamster. Like
Bach.
nicest, sweetest boy.
Yeah,
He just loves
and I
you so
feel so
much.
bad for him.
Yes.
Oh, I know. By the end of his quest, as long as depends on how you end his quest, I guess.
Yeah.
Did you send him to Renala or?
I did not.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah. But
Either.
just like the first thing is it you first interact with him as a talking tree and then he's in the cave and he's like wounded or something and you have to like
Yeah.
heal him.
He like. Yeah. He tries to like go get you something as like a reward from the
Oh,
like,
yes.
he's trying to get you something from from the cave, and he just gets his ass kicked, and
Okay. You
then
heal
you
him.
go kill them, and you give him the needle, and then
Yeah.
yeah, he has his whole I want to be a seamster thing. There's I would say more so than any other FromSoft game, there are a ton of really endearing NPCs in this game. Like just really like there's a lot of NPCs that aren't complete pieces of shit, which is rare in
Yeah.
FromSoft games, I feel like. And there's like a
Yeah.
large number of them, and they're all very sweet and nice
Yeah.
in,
Hmm.
in a lot of ways.
or just like cool and like chill people, which is
Yeah.
nice. I don't know. There's just like a lot of really likable NPCs in this game.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
you know,
EG. I really like EG.
EG is amazing. All of Ronnie's friends, not you,
Yeah,
Selvis,
that's
are
Yes.
Sylvis.
awesome.
But
Like
Yes.
everyone else in her group is like, hell yeah.
Like Blythe is so fucking cool, and he's just like
Yes.
a chill wolf bro,
Yes.
and
Yeah,
his
guts with a wolf head.
Yeah.
yeah, I just gosh, he's so cool. Um, have you guys finished Ronnie's quest?
I
I
haven't.
haven't yet. No.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
It's just interesting knowing like what Blythe is
Yeah.
and his relationship to Ronnie.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, like I said, that was I really liked following Nephili's storyline, but the fact that like I can't get her now onto the throne because of some important quest. Like,
you should be able to still. I don't think that there's a lockout for that as long as she's still alive.
oh, I was holding on to the potion to give to. I read that you can give it to the Dung Eater, so like
Yeah.
I held on to it. But like as soon as Selvis is dead, like I don't know that giving the potion away triggers like her going back to the throne room.
Oh, the potion isn't tied to what you chose to do with the potion doesn't matter for Nephili's quest as long as you don't give it to her.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Then I don't know
You
what the trigger is to get her
you can just
from the
you can
round
just
table
give it to
hold to.
yeah, you can just give it to Gideon and he'll dump it down the toilet or something. But yeah, the I mean, have you gone back to the church and given her like the Stormhawk
Yep.
ashes?
Yep.
Okay. And
Yeah,
you've talked to
I really like that because it was like, because like figuring out how to get teleported back to like the starting area and then beating the shit out of the grafted scion and kills you was like
I know.
very
Yeah,
redemptive.
revenge.
Another staple of the FromSoft game is the boss that's like designed to murder you at the beginning of the game and then going back when you're all grown up and beating up the
Yeah.
guy that bullied you at the beginning of the game is always very satisfying.
Yeah.
um, yeah, I don't know then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you've already given her.
I give her the hawk, and like every time I talk to her, she's like, "Oh, these hawks remind me of the hawks I used to have," or something like that. Like that's her
Yeah.
only line.
Oh, you have to get to the spot beyond the fire giant for it to
Oh,
fully.
okay. Maybe that's what I'm waiting for.
Yeah. Literally, once you like do the spot that you're at right now, she should progress.
Okay, cool. Um, moving on. The how do we feel about multiplayer? I feel like some of the marketing was I think I don't know if maybe slightly misleading, but like you could technically co-op your way through the entire game, but it would be very
Sort
difficult to
of.
you could be very difficult
Yeah.
to do that because it's still like a janky weird summoning
Yeah, I mean
thing.
this is the most accessible FromSoft game for multiplayer
Mm-hmm.
that they've done so far. It's pretty tight, but it's still the same system, which is meant to
Yeah.
be
I was pretty disappointed with it.
it's meant to be session based, boss based summons. And yeah, it is kind of too bad because I was talking to Steven about this a bit last night, and I kind of my my pipe dream for what FromSoft's next project would be to make like a dedicated multiplayer style game like
Yeah.
this with encounters like designed for party based combat and
Yeah.
stuff. Um, because it's like you get like just the barest taste of that in Elden Ring, where it's like when you summon some friends and you've all got like different builds going on and you're all fighting a boss, it's like
Yeah.
it's very
Firing on all
fun
cylinders.
for those moments.
Yeah.
The closest thing I could think to compare it to is like Monster Hunter, kind of,
Yeah.
but like with Souls combat, which is amazing. And I would love a whole game designed and intended around that.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I don't know if you guys did much invading or anything. I mean, there's a whole
I just did it enough to like proceed White Mask Fari's
Same.
yeah
quest so I could
Farah's
teleport
quest.
to the blood.
Same,
And that's,
Blood Town.
there's some really big communities that are huge fans of FromSoft games and their multiplayer, and
Yeah.
particularly like the PvP of it. That's not something I've ever really gotten into. But it seems like it's the same thing. There's just a bunch of really meta builds, and everybody's running Rivers of Blood or whatever the
Yeah.
heck else, and
Yeah.
Blowing people up with that, one
yeah,
Uber spell or whatever.
yeah. Um,
I don't think I was invaded very much, I guess.
I have not been
I've
invaded
I've
once.
never been invaded, and I don't know why.
Me neither, and I don't know why either. It's really
And
strange.
the best I can think of is like I think you're most likely to be like the times that I invaded, I never invaded just a single person. They always had someone else helping them in the
Oh,
world.
yep.
Yeah, I think it's the
Same.
more you co-op,
Yeah,
Interesting.
because yeah, every
I
time
think
I've
it's
invaded,
something
there was
like
two
that.
people, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's like they always had a full party every time I invaded, which is like all right. Also, kind of makes invading suck a bit more, but
Yeah.
um, but anyway,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think I got frustrated a couple times, like trying to figure out how to get people to jump in and like help me. Like I was on, I was streaming. I had like friends from work try and like jump in and like try and
yeah.
like work through how to
I'll
get
say
people to summon and make sure that I could see their sign and all that kind of stuff was super
it's a little
irritating.
finagling. I will say like mostly d- I've mostly co-opted with Stephen and Pamela, and then
Hmm.
I know I've done a little bit with you, especially earlier on, Patrick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the time we'd done it a couple of times, I feel like the password worked pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the password like worked, and I think that like it worked better than any of the previous
Yeah, I guess I'm also
Dark Souls
comparing it.
games.
I'm comparing it to all the other ones, which were just free. You just
I
like couldn't do it.
still,
You just couldn't play with your
yeah,
friends in those ones. Like
Yeah.
it sucked.
right. I still feel like at like this point in time, like I know it's maybe not the point of this game, but it's like I should just be able to like PlayStation invite somebody,
Yeah.
or I should just be
Yeah,
able to like send like a direct invite. I shouldn't have to do this like take an item and scroll it on the floor, and hopefully you set the right password, and then they have to see it and then pick it and then load
yeah,
in, and then it's like it
and
should just at this day and age that shit should be seamless. Period. I don't care how hardcore your game is.
yeah, and I almost just feel like, I mean, it's very anchored in their old designs, and for whatever reason, they weren't willing to leave that aspect of it behind for this one.
Yeah.
And I feel like that design is rooted in the idea that like you shouldn't really be playing with your friends through this game.
Right,
It's
and
it's
that makes sense in previous games where
it
like yeah,
does.
like playing co-op, it sort of destroys the integrity of like how like
Yeah,
difficult and challenging it's supposed to be.
yeah. Like in
But
Dark
in
Souls,
this
it's like
game where you have so many options and so many different ways to approach, it doesn't make sense anymore because it's like I can just go in and stomp a boss now just because of the kit I have, so it shouldn't really matter if I'm playing with friends.
yeah, it's like the intention, like back original Dark Souls when they kind of were pioneering this thing, was very much like you can summon someone, but it's going to be a random person from anywhere the fuck else, and
Yeah.
who knows, and that was sort of the point. Is like it's not supposed to be like a controlled thing, but yeah, I do feel like that system of multiplayer feels both a bit outdated and like they haven't iterated on it very much throughout their games in ways they have their other systems.
Yeah.
And also it clashes specifically with Elden Ring, I think, in some ways, that makes it
Yeah.
feel kind of more archaic. Um,
Especially when you have even in like the setting and lore, like the fiction of the world,
yeah,
you
Yeah.
have people that are helpful, that are helping you, and that you're
Yeah.
helping them. You know what I
I
mean? So
I think
it's
that's part of the other clash is like the world doesn't feel as hostile. It's
right.
still a very
Yeah.
hostile world, but there's like so many, like everybody isn't just freaking insane out of their mind, hollow people,
Yeah.
Um, and there's other tarnished running around and stuff. So it's
Yeah.
like in Dark Souls, it's like, okay, time is wibbly wobbly. I'm technically summoning someone from like another world or timeline into my world
Yeah.
to help,
Right.
and that kind of works in the fiction. But it's like that's not really a thing in Elden Ring, from what I can tell.
At least not to the extent that it was in Dark Souls.
Yeah, no, the
So it's like
implication is this: you've encountered another person who's also trying to do what you're trying to do.
exactly. So it doesn't make as much like the elegance of design isn't quite there in the way that that system was in Dark Souls with the way that that world was designed. So that there's definitely kind of a clash there.
Going back
What
with
I
like
wonder
go for it.
is if it's like technical, if
Mm,
there's technical limitations that are preventing
maybe.
I do
something
wonder
like that, or if they were just, if they're just, like making games is hard. This is a massive game, massive undertaking, or if they're
Yeah.
just like, we don't have time to do something new. We're just gonna like strap on the old system here.
And I mean, I know a lot of that is like prioritizing what they want to give love when they're
Yeah.
making a
Yeah,
game that scope, and maybe
Yeah.
they just were
yeah,
like that wasn't where the interest was. That wasn't really
right.
their priority. So it just kind of got
Hard to knock them for that.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can't exactly.
One of the
And
one
that
of
no,
one of the great
go ahead.
quests. Speaking of like that on that theme, like one of the great I thought there would be more repercussion for following the Volcano Manor quest.
Mm,
Of like I'm going in and I'm like invading other Tarnished and like this is a big deal. Like I'm like
yeah,
theoretically destroying Tarnished who are also trying to progress this overall end goal. Like I thought that would have been a bigger kind of hitting point of like, oh, I'm like invading and like
yeah. Volcano Manor deserved its own ending, and I
yeah.
think it's weird that they didn't get. I think it's weird that there wasn't like a devour the very gods with Rykard ending.
Mm,
I guess the frenzied flame ending is like the closest you get to that because you
uh,
just burn everything to the fucking ground.
yeah.
Um, but it was weird because it's like there's this whole storyline like, oh, we're rebelling against the order of the Erd Tree, and we
Yeah.
don't play their game, go kill other Tarnished and all of that kind of stuff. And then it just kind of like, and then at the end of that quest, they're just like, oh, good job. Do you want to meet Rykard? And then Rykard's like,
Yeah,
I'm gonna eat you.
Yeah.
And I guess the implication is that the whole thing is a front, and the only reason they do that is to find people strong enough that Rykard can devour them
Eat
and
them.
get their strength,
Yeah.
and then you can devour the very gods together.
Oh, and even freaking Dialos is like, I don't think I have the stomach for this, and it was like, okay, like,
Dialos.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Did you guys find Jarberg out of curiosity?
yes,
good.
I love Jarberg.
yeah.
I love that little jar.
Jarbarn,
Jarbjorn.
Jarbjorn.
He's so cute.
Yes,
Caribbean.
your hands are your hands aren't smooth enough to be a pot mate or whatever.
That that was one of that gave me a laugh because then Diallo shows up and they're like, his hands are so smooth.
Yes, yeah,
He's perfect for massaging us or whatever.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
potentate, that's the word. He's
Potentate,
a
yeah,
perfect potentate. It's
yeah.
like, oh Diallos, you suck. You're not a you're not a fighter, my friend. Uh, that guy's quest line is sad.
Yeah. I do kind of appreciate for the quest, like basically like the quest is over when the NPC dies.
That's
Yeah.
classic FromSoft. It's like complete the NPC's quest. There's two ways to get the NPC's stuff: complete their quest till they die, or kill them and take their boots.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like, there's that one quest. Like you head to the south, and there's that guy or that girl who's like,
Oh,
go help my dad in
yes.
the place to the south. And you
Yep.
go in there, and you kill everything. You talk to that
Oh
guy,
yeah,
and he's like, oh yeah, thank you. I'm gonna go back to my daughter now. And he goes back. Daughter's dead. And
yeah.
then like next time you see him, he's just like he's a
He's an
like
invader.
invader type,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's just it. And I was like, oh, that's so
yeah.
disappointing.
I know. I really thought there was more to that quest, but there is
Yeah.
not. It's weird. Also, man, the bluntness of like coming back and she's dead, just like dead, and there's like a big freaking demi-human axe stuck in the ground next to her.
Oh, yeah.
And then you can walk up to her and interact with it, and it just says she's dead.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, I got it.
We've talked a little bit about how they're kind of patching in more kind of quest lines and stuff like that. We've talked a little bit
Yeah.
about like, is there confirmed that they're working on like a sequel? I feel like that kind of conversation's already kind of started.
I mean,
Who
yeah.
knows with
There's been
them?
no formal announcement.
But
Okay.
Like Bloodborne was massively successful, and there's still no sequel. So
yeah,
True.
that said,
they,
and I think Bloodborne's DLC is probably the best DLC they've made for a game.
Mm.
Man, that DLC is good. But
Is
yeah,
it?
I mean, there's a lot of potential for other characters that are mentioned in the lore and stuff that could still be used for a DLC.
Yeah.
But who
I
knows?
mean, it was.
You
Yeah.
can't fucking predict what FromSoft is going to do.
Well, I
As
think
far as that.
I think this has been successful on a scale far and above beyond, at least
It has.
like
yeah,
units of revenue. Like,
Yeah, I think the question is whether they go straight into their next title or whether they're working on a DLC, and I
yeah.
don't think they've spoken to that yet.
Okay.
But I would love a DLC for Elden Ring. Honestly, I think the game is big enough without it, and
Sure.
I think it's already kind of like, dare I say, too big.
it's bordering on that.
I read a couple. I read a couple articles that were like, man, I want to be able to get through this, but if I only have 2 to 3 hours a week, like it's going to take me all year to get through the game.
Yeah, I've already sort of like resigned to the fact that I will beat this game sometime this fall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just how long it takes if you can't just like dump the time into it.
Yeah.
Right,
just
and I also just
I
the
just
type of gamer I am. I can't just mainline something too much for too long. I get it wears me out, and I'm like, I want to play something else.
Yeah.
yeah, I go hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, my honestly, my dream for this for sequels and stuff. Like I said at the beginning, I want them to make a multiplayer game.
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah,
I want them to make a game that is designed for like party combat, and they can still use a lot of their Souls formula and stuff, but man,
Yeah.
like something designed from the ground up to be played with a team of like a party of friends
Yeah.
made
yeah. Just make it
would
extra
be
hard, you know.
would be
Yeah.
incredible. Or yeah, like boss designs that are actually like designed from the ground up with the intention that you'll be fighting it with multiple people. Puzzles that require
Right.
multiple people to solve, you know?
And the
I mean,
hardcore
Man.
that's why
fans will figure
we
out a way to
liked
solo it.
Remnant so
Like, yeah.
much, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's
We
why
liked
yeah,
Remnant because it allowed
man,
that.
Yeah.
man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, every time somebody mentions Remnant, I want to go back and play Remnant. That game
Yes.
was phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never did play the DLC for that. Maybe I'll re-download Remnant.
I know
Um.
we tried
Yeah.
picking it up again at one point, I think.
Yeah,
and
we
then
fell off pretty quick.
fell
I
off pretty
did the
hard,
I did
but-
the like roguelike mode, and like that was fun for a little bit.
Yeah, I did a little bit of that one. It was
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
I didn't really. I found it like it was kind of too hard.
Yes.
As
Yeah.
lame as that sounds.
Because you didn't have the right build at the right time.
Oh yeah, Casey, I think you
This-
and I did some of the roguelike
Yeah.
sections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that
All
being
three of
very
us
difficult.
played like once at least. That was
Yeah.
part of what we did when we came back.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool.
Honestly,
Any
where's
other?
my Remnant sequel? God, what's that studio doing?
Yeah.
Anyway,
I
Where's
mean, they got
that?
bought by
did they get bought?
Sony. Sony might have purchased them.
Sony, where's my Remnant and
Yeah.
where's my Bloodborne sequels?
Yes.
What's wrong
I
with
think,
you?
Yeah.
They can't make a Bloodborne sequel unless Miyazaki says I want to make a Bloodborne sequel, basically.
Yeah.
Well, they
Yeah.
could, but that would probably not go super well.
Yeah. Probably not. Although they did the Demon Souls port without From, right?
Yeah, that's my hope is like that From would just sign off on a Bloodborne like remaster or something. You know.
Yeah.
I just want an excuse to play Bloodborne again. Honestly, it doesn't even need a remaster. It still holds up fine.
Yeah.
But anyway, Bloodborne's good.
Any other things? Any topics of conversation before we jump into our final thoughts?
Nah, I think I got most of it.
Cool, Kev. What are your kind of final thoughts on Elden Ring?
This is a really controversial opinion, but I think that Elden Ring is very good.
Whoa.
I know nobody's saying it, but I'm brave enough to say it. Elden Ring is a good video game. I think that the differences from other FromSoft titles are a bit overblown. So if you liked it and you liked the combat, like again, you're not going to get the exploration that you're getting from Elden Ring, but if you liked the combat, if you liked the vibe,
If you like that sort of RPG progression and stuff, maybe consider giving Dark Souls 3 a look. And if you like that, maybe explore the other ones. Um, Man, Elden Ring is just so good, guys. I don't know. We're
Yeah.
gonna be talking about this game for years.
Yeah.
It's the biggest mile. It feels like a Breath of the Wild style milestone for video games
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
as just a medium. So it's going to be one of those games where every other open world game that comes out is going to be compared to it for onward for the next 10, 15 years till something else comes out that pushes the genre forward again.
Yeah.
Like this is a special video game that that does advance its genre and does some really incredible things, and I like it a lot, and a lot of other people do too.
Yeah. Patrick?
It's great. I don't know. Like it's everything I was hoping it would be, honestly. You know, there was so much hype and we've been disappointed so often by big games the last few years that it was so nice to like sit down with this game and realize it's exactly what you thought it was going to be, and that's a big step in
Yeah,
in gaming. Yeah, it's probably, well, outside of like nostalgia goggles, you know, it's probably the best like open world fantasy game
Mm.
I
that
agree with that.
exists, you know.
Mm.
Um Obviously it's hard to like say, I don't know if it's like my favorite, and it's hard to look back and compare it to things that are much older,
Yeah.
you know. Obviously like
Yeah,
Morrowind has a huge place in my heart for that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. But
yeah, and I mean, I think
it
games as art,
yeah.
they're sort of products of their time too. And I
Yeah.
think we talk about advancing genres and stuff,
Yeah.
and yeah,
It
I think.
it definitely advances many things, I think, and it certainly takes
Mhm.
the winning, you know, Soul Dark Souls formula and applies it to something much grander, um, and it and it was so successful that I'm very excited for the future because you know it's like who knows what if they're like, hey, wow, people seem to really like this, they could really imagine like Bloodborne 2 with like a
Oh,
city, like a sprawling city like this
uh,
big, you know, like
I
Yeah.
can only take so much hype.
you know, something like
So
that. Like just them just knowing that this is like such a winning formula in a different
Yeah.
type of
yeah,
setup is a big deal. The one critique I want to actually give this game is that I think some of the boss themes are really good. I hate that there's not really overworld music
yeah,
and
it's
that it's
kind of
this
weird.
very subtle tonal ambient
Mm.
thing where it kind of feels like I'm trapped in the same like suspense scene in a horror movie that never seems to like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt
And
that a bit.
maybe it's the like JRPG guy in me that's like I wish like each zone had a more distinct, you know, like leitmotif sort of like.
Yeah, no,
Mm.
I agree, and I think that there's some. It feels kind of lazy because there are definitely some other open world games that have done a lot more things with dynamic music choices that are contextual to what you're doing at the moment and stuff like that. And those aren't really there. That's a good point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there's a part of it that I wanted it to be a bit more Zelda-y, where it's
Mm.
like when I'm in the desert, you know, there's like a particular,
Soundtrack.
you know, the Gerudo Valley has a
Yeah.
different sound
Yeah,
than Hyrule Field,
Yeah.
and I just wanted that in this game,
Mm.
because when you're just out in the open world, it feels every zone sounds kind of the same to me.
Sure.
yeah, I agree with that. The areas don't really feel like they have a very distinct like musical or auditory identity.
The
Um,
the
Yeah,
one exception to that is I found Lindell to be very like haunting and like the kind of brass horns playing in the background while I'm running around.
yeah, because
Added
I
to
don't
the
want to say
vibe.
that they aren't doing it,
Yeah.
because like
it's
it
just
is
subtle.
different in each region, but
Yeah.
it's so subtle.
Yeah.
And I'm like such a big like RPG music nerd, you know. I'm just like I
Yeah.
wish this was a bit more interesting, a bit grander, a bit less like, I get it, dread, guys. I got the dread. I can see it. Like,
That's
give
true.
me
Yeah, it would be
give me
nice
just a little bit more melody.
Yeah, it'd be nice if there was something that made me want to like listen to the Elden Ring soundtrack.
Right.
Yeah.
That's like honestly the thing. It's like I love playing like a game and then going like, oh, I love this particular zone. It had a great song. I'm adding this to like my playlist of game soundtracks. There's not a single song from Elden Ring that I could even honestly remember or be like, I want to listen to this later.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a valid point.
So that's my only honest criticism of the game.
Okay.
That and the torrent stuff we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Which again isn't really criticism, it's more of just like a desire.
Yeah, and I didn't mention my final thoughts, but I do still the bosses, some of them are hit and miss. But
I will say that I am coming I'm the one that was coming to this as a FromSoft noob, and so I can say that this was, or at least it felt more approachable than my FromSoft experience in the past. So I can attest to its approachability. I usually get very frustrated in the cycle of semi roguelikes or recursive games of die until you can't get until you figure it all out. But no, I really found the open world compelling. I feel like while I didn't manipulate my build too much, like I could just like the beautiful mind moment of just like all the different ways that you can interact with this world via your builds and spells and all that kind of stuff is just mind boggling. So I really like that. I like the ash system for, like Kevin said, like you can make it as difficult or as you want, and so like I really enjoyed summoning an ash when I couldn't get through something, or mixing up my style and when I could. But overall, yeah, I really liked kind of the world. I fell in love with a lot of the NPCs and kind of enjoyed trying to figure out how to get through their storylines. And overall, if I ever hit a difficulty wall, I just was more incentive to go and explore more, which this world is lovely and great. So I really enjoyed going and exploring, fighting, potentially a similar enemy out in the world, and then taking that experience both literally and figuratively to go back and try the boss again. Yeah, and I recommend it to people who aren't typically From Software fans, because I think it is, again, very, very approachable.
Nice.
Well, great. As always, thank you guys for showing up to talk about Elden Ring. I'm glad that we all enjoyed it and all had pretty good positive vibes, and I'm kind of excited for New Game Plus, just to be able to kind of go back and re-explore. Probably not immediately after I pick it up, but
no, but this is definitely the kind of game I could see myself like picking up once a year.
Oh
to be like, oh, I'm gonna jump back into that. I'm gonna I always wanted to try this build.
Yeah, starting fresh runs is also a lot of fun. New Game Plus is great too. If you want to try a new build in New Game Plus, make sure you respec before you do New Game Plus, because otherwise you have to wait till you beat Renala again to respec. But
oh, and just the different paths to get through things. Like I thought I was stuck in Liurnia, and then I discovered the pathway to get to the Atlas Plateau, and I was like, well, maybe I should go back to Ray Lucaria before I go to the Atlas Plateau, but could have avoided it if I wanted to. So lots of different ways that you can play the game.
You can go there pretty. You can go up to the plateau pretty early. You just need to get you just need to get both halves of the medallion.
Oh yeah.
And so you're not really blocked from getting there, assuming you're good enough to like kill the things to get to it or whatever. But I think that's fascinating that you can skip ahead so far.
Yeah. Or someone said that you can follow the bridge around and get around Godric's castle.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a path around. That's actually how I got to Liurnia the first time.
Yeah. So, yeah, lots of different ways to play, and you don't even need to hit those walls that you think are there. Cool. Thanks again for talking Elden Ring with me, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
And as always, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy this content. If you do, follow, like, and subscribe to me on YouTube and Twitch so you can see more great content like this. We're still figuring out what the next Friend Zone game is. We'll still eventually talk about Pokemon Arceus. But for now, hopefully you enjoyed this and playing through Elden Ring. Feel free to leave your comments down below. And as always, I hope you have a super day. I hope you have a super week. And I hope you have a super day. Bye!